Here's a lesson for free. If you're wearing armbands and the doorbell goes, don't go to the door wearing the armbands. The poor delivery driver that just arrived and left something on the doorstep had the shock of his life when a guy in a dog collar comes out wearing armbands. I mean, it's been raining here quite a lot, but things aren't quite that bad yet. Why the armbands? Well, we're dealing with people learning to swim by themselves. In the letter of 1 Thessalonians, not swimming in water, but living the Christian life, swimming in the grace and love of God for themselves. You can read about Paul's visit to the church in Thessalonica in Acts chapter 17. He went there with Silas, and things went well. He's being persecuted quite heavily from place to place, running from city to city. But there amongst the Thessalonians, he found a warm reception. They received his message, they imitated him, and quite quickly became a model of what it means to be a Christian disciple. And there at the beginning of the letter, he writes, commending them for their works of faith, for their labour of love, and for their steadfastness of hope. And what he's saying is, guys, you can actually be more confident. You've got this nailed. You don't need supporting. You don't need people to hold you by the hand anymore. Grow. Live out your Christian walk in maturity. The things that you have to learn now can only be learnt through practicing your faith, your love, and your hope. You don't need people around you to support you and guide you anymore. You can dare to take off the armbands. And the letter of 1 Thessalonians is probably one of the earliest letters, if not the earliest letter that Paul wrote, as he's finding his feet as an apostle and through a ministry of apostle through this letter writing. And there are several themes in these letters of 1 and 2 Thessalonians that we'll be familiar with because they've already cropped up in some of the other letters, which, though we've read them first, they actually came later. And we think that Paul is probably writing to this community to encourage them, but also to remind them of their relationship. Perhaps he's being criticized. Oh, yeah, you think Paul's great? Well, where is he now? He came and started things off, but he's not that interested in you, is he? He's not been back. And what Paul's kind of saying is, I don't need to come back. You've got this. You're doing this. In fact, you're an example to other Christians, just as we were an example to you. Now you are an example to other churches as well. And he commends them for their works of faith and their labour of love and their steadfastness of hope. And faith, hope, and love, of course, is something that he picks up and explores later in 1 Corinthians, which was written probably 3 or 4 years after the letter of 1 Thessalonians. There's something in there about past, present, and future as well, isn't there? Work of faith, well, that's about being confident in all that God has done in the past. The works of God reminding us of who he is and laying that foundation upon which we can dare to live as Christians in an uncertain and an insecure world. It's about confidence as we look to the past and remind ourselves of God's faithfulness. Labour of love is all about exercising faith in the present, living out and expressing that faith seen and grown in the past, expressing it in the present in the way in which we honour God and serve one another. And that steadfastness of hope as the people hold fast to all that is before them, confident that the reality around them doesn't define them. This isn't all there is, and that sovereign Lord we were exploring yesterday in Colossians has opened up for us and for the whole world a new and different reality. So Paul says, take off the armbands, live as mature Christians. Don't use these as boxing gloves to fight one another. No, live at peace and unity with each other. And don't use this as a pillow. No, you've got to be active in your faith and you've got to earn your living and everything else. Yes, Jesus is going to come back at some point, but not that soon. So get busy, not just loving, but you need to support yourselves as well as individuals and as a community, supporting one another. So get working, get active, get busy, keep going and saying, guys, you're not kids anymore in this. You can take off the armbands and live as mature Christians. Most of us feel like we're getting this Christian stuff wrong, that we're making rookie errors or elementary mistakes. Well, that's partly how we grow. Doesn't mean that we got it wrong. doesn't mean that we're just babies in this. No, it's actually through those mistakes that we learn and become mature. God's grace is underneath us. Remember the faithfulness in the past, the love in the future, the hope, the love in the present, and the hope for the future. God's got us. We can dare to take risks, dare to fail. It's about how we learn from those failures that will mark out our maturity, actually. If we just hold our hands up and say, can't do this, it's too hard, well, that's what kids do. No, we're called to maturity, to practice this working out our faith and labouring in love and steadfastness in hope. Taking off the armbands, not looking for other people to always lead and guide us, but stepping out ourselves into this faith which we have received through others but are now called to work out for ourselves. And what's the reminder at the end of the letter? There it is in verse 24 of chapter 5. God is faithful, and he will do all that he promises. And so, with that security, we can afford to step out and try swimming for ourselves. 1 Thessalonians, then, it's a letter of encouragement. As we read it, may we too be encouraged in our faith journey, wherever we find ourselves. And even when we're tempted to reach for the life support, to know that God's got us and will always be with us. And even if we get it wrong, there's stuff to learn, and God will lead us forward. There's lots to be encouraged in 1 Thessalonians. Read, enjoy.